Welcome, everyone. I'm sorry to say that today we just canceled the meeting. An emergency just occurred. So nobody was expecting that, wasn't it? Boom. I like it. This is just impromptu, too. I didn't even think about it. I wasn't planning it. So welcome, everyone. I now call the April 1st, 2025 regular City Council meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, we will take a moment to take roll call of the council members by position number. Please say here when the clerk calls your name. City Clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Zorns?
Here.
Mayor Thompson? Councilmember Alders?
Here.
Councilmember Kurd?
Here.
Councilmember Menke?
Here.
Councilmember Dodd?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Alcabra?
Here.
All present with the exception of Mayor Thompson, who is absent and excused.
Thank you. Before we continue with the rest of the agenda, I'd like to reiterate some guidelines. For remote meeting attendees, please speak clearly and pause frequently. Mute your microphone when not speaking. And for council, for council attending remotely, use the raise hand feature when you wish to speak. And we don't have any council members attending remotely. Meeting agenda approval. Are there any changes to the agenda? All right, public engagement opportunities. We have one today. Bothell Police touch a truck. Kids of all ages are invited to see and touch a patrol vehicle and traffic motorcycle. This is a sensory-friendly event and no sirens or other loud noises will be demonstrated. It's on Wednesday, April 9th, 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the police station parking lot. To learn more and to register, please visit bothellwa.gov/touchatruck. All right, we have some proclamations. The first one is World Autism Awareness Day, and Councilmember Alders will read it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Whereas World Autism Awareness Day was first observed by the United Nations General Assembly in 2007 to affirm and promote the full realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms for autistic people, and whereas progress has been made globally and locally thanks to the many amazing autistic individuals and advocates who have worked tirelessly to bring the lived experience of autistic people to the wider world, and whereas autistic individuals of all ages play vital roles in our communities as our neighbors, classmates, coworkers, friends, and family members, and whereas by supporting and recognizing the many service providers and community spaces for autistic and neurodivergent people in the Bothell community, we strive to be a place where all people feel safe, welcome, and celebrated, and where they can live, play, learn, and work as their authentic selves. And whereas the Behavior Place is one piece of the interconnected system of support available to the Bothell community, which seeks to provide welcoming and inclusive spaces focused on early intervention, skill building through play, and social inclusion, and individualized family support. Now, therefore, I, Jenny Alders, on behalf of Mason Thompson, Mayor of the City of Bothell, do hereby proclaim April 2nd as Autism Awareness Day in the City of Bothell and join in honoring and celebrating the many autistic people who add to the rich tapestry of our community. Laura! I'm gonna cry. Okay. So, my kids receive services from the Behavior Place for many, many years. And Laura is the founder of the clinic just here in downtown Bothell. We were like one of your first clients in Bothell. And now she's 18 years old. And you moved across the country, and I am shocked to see you here and so happy to see you here. I have a proclamation for you. I'm coming down there to give you a hug.
I tried to warn you. I was trying to show you the notes. You wouldn't, you,
So this is for you. There you are.
Thank you. Okay. All right. My name is Laura Trust. I'm representing the Behavior Place. We would like to accept this proclamation on behalf of the autism community here in Bothell that we have proudly served for the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, we have honorably served nearly 300 children with autism, teaching them important skills such as communication, social, safety, and adaptive skills, all in a client and family-centered approach. We have appreciated calling Bothell our home and helping our kids and families navigate a community that supports and accepts the autism and neurodivergent community. We want to express our heartfelt gratitude for this proclamation and for the opportunity to stand before you today as we recognize Autism Awareness Month. In a town like ours, every gesture of support, every act of kindness, and every step towards inclusion truly matters. For those of us who have the privilege of working with individuals on the autism spectrum, we know that each person has a unique set of strengths, challenges, and needs. It is our role to understand and embrace these differences and abilities, not just this month, but each and every day. This proclamation reminds us that autism acceptance and awareness is not just about knowledge, it's about action and continued education. It's about every day creating an environment where everyone feels safe, respected, welcomed, and supported, regardless of how they experience the world. Whether it's offering a helping hand, promoting inclusive practices, or simply being a good neighbor, every effort counts. We also recognize the immense strength and resilience of individuals on the autism spectrum, as well as the families and caregivers who support them. Their dedication inspires us to be better, to do better, and to advocate for the world that embraces diversity in all of its forms. I want to thank the community leaders, local organizations, and other local service providers for their commitment to serving Bothell. Together, we can continue to build a community that doesn't just acknowledge differences, but celebrates them. Let's continue to work together to ensure that people with autism feel seen, valued, and included every day. Thank you for this honor and privilege.
thank you, Laura. Would you like to take a picture with
Yeah.
council? Yeah. And anybody else? I don't know if you're the only one. All right. For our next proclamation, I think I will read this one. That's okay. It is the Eid al Fitr, or Eid al Fitr, the end of Ramadan proclamation. Whereas Ramadan is considered worldwide by Muslims as a holy month of fasting and spiritual renewal, and whereas in the Muslim spiritual practice, fasting is a way to practice empathy for others, be more God-conscious, increase empathy, solidarity, and gratitude, and increase charity, spiritual soul cleansing, and community unity. It is a meaningful time to heighten worship and devotion, and while also practicing deeper self-reflection and self-restraint. And whereas Ramadan lasts 29 to 30 days based on the timing of the crescent moon, which this year started February 28th, actually started March 1st and ended after sunset March 29th. And whereas the end of Ramadan is commemorated by Eid al Fitr, which translates to Festival of Breaking the Fast, a celebration of gratitude and a joyous occasion marked by sharing sweets, gifts, and good tidings with family, friends, and neighbors. And whereas the American Muslim community is among the most racially diverse faith groups in the United States, with many Muslim Americans tracing their roots back to the African slave trade and African diaspora, And whereas Bothell has a thriving Muslim community whose members contribute to our city as doctors, nurses, teachers, small business owners, volunteers, students, and more. And whereas Ramadan gives us the opportunity to recognize the significance of our Muslim community and serve as a reminder that Islam is a part of America and that Muslims have made extraordinary contributions to our community and country. Now, therefore, I, Rami Al-Kabra, on behalf of Mason Thompson, Mayor of the City of Bothell, do hereby proclaim February 28th to March 29th as the month of Ramadan, with March 30th as Eid al Fitr, marking the end of Ramadan, and affirm our city's commitment to ensuring our city remains welcoming and compassionate, and that we pursue policies that respect the dignity and the rights of all people, regardless of race, religion, immigration status, or country of origin. And here to accept is Ahmed Idris, a really good friend of mine and the president of the Islamic Center of Bothell.
Hi, respected Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you. My name is Ahmed Idris, and it is an honor to serve as the President of Islamic Center of Bothell, also known as ICOB. We accept the proclamation. For the past decade, ICOB has been an integral part of this community, dedicated to services, understanding, and building meaningful relationships. Our contributions have ranged from preparing meals for the very needy to opening doors to visitors from all walks of life, giving us an opportunity to build bonds in the local community, and giving them an opportunity to learn about our center and the Muslim community here in Bothell and beyond. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for recognizing Eid al Fitr for the 4th consecutive year. This recognition holds deep significance for us and in celebrating of unity, mutual understanding, collaboration, and the shared values that unite us all. Yesterday marked a historical milestone with the passage of the Senate Bill 5106 off the House floor, following its approval in the Senate just about a month ago. This momentous occasion honors the vital contribution of Muslim Americans who serve in various fields across Washington as doctors, engineers, educators, volunteers, and civil servants. It stands as a testament to the dedication, resilience, and excellence of our community members. Eid al Fitr, the festival of breaking the fast, is a time of giving joy, giving, and gratitude following the sacred month of Ramadan. Ramadan is a month of fasting, spiritual reflection, and self-discipline, where Muslims refrain from food, drink, and even water from dawn until sunset. It is a time of deep patience, empathy, solidarity, and generosity, a true test for heart and spirit. Eid itself is a celebration that brings families and communities together. It is a day marked by festive attire, shared meals, sweets, and gifts, especially for children who delight in receiving presents and money. Overall, it is a day to celebrate our shared humanity and the bonds that unite us all. The Islamic Center of Bothell warmly invites you all to visit us and learn about our center, our practices, and the vibrant community we nurture. We look forward to collaborating with you to help make Bothell an even more dynamic and thriving city. As a proud member of this community, we are committed to being an integral part of the broader fabric of the society, and we welcome the opportunity to strengthen our understanding and partnership with our neighbors. Thank you once again for recognition and the continued support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Would you like to take a picture? We're at the public comment section. The city has accepted public comment in writing as well as accepted sign-up for those who wish to speak at tonight's meeting. Written comments submitted to the city clerk no later than 3 p.m. today were forwarded to all city council members and are part of the record. When the city clerk calls your name, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Please note that the council will receive your input, but we do not engage in discussion of these topics. Staff will make notes of items requiring follow-up. City clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Alcabra. We don't have anybody signed up to speak tonight, but we did receive 2 written comments. The first one from Larry Eisenberg regarding downtown Bothell development, and we received a second one from Pam Miller regarding the formation of a Bothell Skate Park Board. If anybody in the audience wishes to speak, please step to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. Please give your name for the record. We'll set the timer for 3 minutes, and at 1 minute, it'll start blinking. Thank you.
I'm just start blinking. Okay.
It'll turn green.
Okay.
And then
I'm
at 1
Susan
minute, it'll
Gardner.
start blinking.
I'm a volunteer at the Bothell Historical Museum, where we see visitors from near and from far, from counties, from other countries. Even the Bothells from Pennsylvania came here last summer because it was closed when they were here 20 years ago. We will be open this month, Sundays 1 to 4, most Sundays, and through October. So I'm looking over the City of Bothell documents, in particular the budget, and I'm speaking to the consent item about the park at Bothell Landing as it relates to the museum. I noticed that there is painting of the 2 buildings in the museum scheduled for this year, or there's funding for that in the budget. So that's great to see. I hope that also includes repairing the wood and any other exterior parts that need to be repaired before it gets painted. I'm also glad to see that in the consent agenda and the program for the museum that they're planning to have workshops specifically for the historic buildings there, and the Museum Society looks forward to participating in those. But there is a ramp that goes to the schoolhouse that has been in disrepair for more than 10 years, and despite continued requests to have it fixed so that people with disabilities can access the schoolhouse, that hasn't happened. So I was looking at the LTAC budget, and I see that it's about $500,000. And given that this is a facility owned by the city and maintained in the exterior by the city, that it would be great if some of those LTEC funds could be used to repair that handicap ramp. I'm sure it'll happen before, I would like to see it happen before the final improvements are made to the park. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anybody else who wishes to speak, please step to the podium. And if you're in the virtual audience and you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function and I will panel you in. Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Skylar Sojig. I'm a resident of Bothell. I'm here on behalf of the Bothell Skate Park Board, a community group started by Rosemary McAuliffe. You have a letter in your packet as submitted written comment, but I'm here to request formally that we have a meeting to set up a partnership and a memorandum of understanding in the near future. It has been discussed in many meetings, but we have yet to submit a formal request. We've already raised a substantial amount of money for this project and have a track record of effectively engaging with the community. And we look forward to hearing from you and making Bothell more amazing. Thank you.
Council members, I'm Josh Friedman, here again for CIO, the property owner who has requested that you allow consideration of legalizing transit-oriented multifamily housing on CIO's expansive, sprawling, and underutilized acreage in the Canyon Park area in the future. It's looking like tonight's consent agenda includes a recommended rejection of the proposal for consideration in calendar year 2025. I'm obviously hoping that the council will decide that this matter is worthy of future discussion this year without punting for future years. When your constituents ask where and when the housing units are coming, this really could be one such place. However, we are happy to accept direction from and work with the city's leadership. We do very much appreciate Kyle's openness and communication with us in this process, and we look forward to working with him and with you to hopefully bring this kind of housing to fruition in future years. The region's housing crisis and our children are depending on it. To close with a couple points in support of your discussion tonight or in future years, I'd like to reinforce a few things that council members and planning commissioners have raised in previous meetings. First, it's true that there can always be further years of study and always can be reasons why punting on an action is the easiest course. If the council decides that 2025 is not the right year to allow consideration of this pro-housing request, then I sincerely hope the city will be able to allow consideration next year. Second, I want to voice our appreciation for the council's careful attention to the city's limited resources. Whether this year or next year, this applicant has fully committed to covering the review costs that the city has promulgated for such housing proposals. Because review costs are billed through to applicants in Bothell, and the city has healthy access to outside consultants that are also commonly billed through to applicants, we're confident in the city's ability to study this potential housing without a drain on resources. Last, I want to echo what many in this chamber have said. This council is stuck with the toughest calls and sometimes needs to try new things in the face of uncertainty. If you decide that 2025 isn't the right year to allow consideration of such an effort on this site, I sincerely hope we'll be able to work with you and with staff to allow the discussion in 2026. I'm sure the council and staff do not want to see these 10 acres get boarded up and fenced off if this tenant decides to leave. So I'm hoping that we're all in agreement that transit-oriented multifamily housing with commercial on site would be much better for all of us. We hope for the chance to work with you to make this possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? That's all I have, Deputy Mayor.
All right, thank you, City Clerk. And now we're at report section. It's first part is the City Manager report. City Manager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and good evening, City Council. We have 3 items under the City Manager report tonight. And the first up is our monthly update from our lobbyist, Shelley Helder, on what's happening down in Olympia during the Washington State Legislative Session. For all who are paying attention, I'm sure you know that today is the 79th day of the session. And there's been quite a bit going on, including testimony on behalf of the City of Bothell today by Councilmember Curd. With that, I'd like to introduce Shelley Helder to provide an update and answer any questions that you might have. With that, Shelley.
Good evening. You give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? Great. Okay. Well, yes, City Manager took away my first talking point, so I'll shift and say there are 26 days left in the legislative session. So we're getting close to the finish line. Tomorrow is the opposite chamber cutoff. So that's when all bills have to advance out of the policy committee in the opposite chamber from where they were introduced. Bills that do not get voted out of the opposite chamber policy committee by tomorrow will die. And then if they advance, they continue through the process. Both the House and the Senate have now published all 3 of their budget proposals. As a reminder, the state has 3 budgets: the operating, the capital, and the transportation budget. With each chamber proposing their own budgets, there were 6 budgets released over the course of the last 2 weeks. And so I have been reading budget documents for most of the last 2 weeks. As we expected, each chamber has a different approach to the budget challenges that the state is facing. And the budgets that are under the most scrutiny because of declining revenues are the operating budget and the transportation budget. And I want to correct what I just said. The transportation budget is seeing declining revenues. The operating budget, the revenues are not declining, they're just not growing at the rate that was previously predicted. Between now and April 27th, which is the last day of the legislative session, the legislature will hopefully find common ground and find that common ground within the criteria that has been outlined by the governor for what he would like to see in a budget that arrives at his desk. Just earlier today, he publicized more specifically what he would be willing to support. Couple of the highlights from that press release, he made it very clear that he does not support the wealth tax that was included in the proposals. He does not think it's prudent to balance a budget with revenues that could be overturned by the courts. He also noted the importance of keeping the state's rainy day fund in a really healthy condition where it is now, but it was proposed to be a tool in order to balance the operating budget. And then he emphasized the importance of minimizing new investments. So those are just some of the highlights of what the governor has shared that he would like to see the legislature prioritize and the budget that he'd like to see come before him. The release of the budgets was a little bit of a mixed bag for Bothell's priorities. So I'm going to talk through each of the city's priorities that relate to the budgets and then where it stands in both the House and the Senate proposal. So the city requested $1.9 million from the capital budget for the Woodcrest Utility Improvement Project. In the House capital budget, the city is allocated $1.5 million for this project. And I wish I could jump up and down and tell you how exciting that is, because even though it is less than the 1.9 that was requested, it is still on the very high end of the size of awards that are allocated this year. So that is a significant achievement. On the Senate, in the Senate capital budget, there is no funding awarded to the city's project. So we're in one budget, we're at 1.5, and in one budget, we're at 0. The next priority, the city requested a state investment in multimodal connections. And specifically, we made a request for $400,000 for the 80th Avenue shared use path. The Senate proposed transportation budget includes this project on a list of projects that are eligible to receive future funding if revenue is available. The House does not include funding for any new projects. So for this one in the Senate, we have an uncertain amount at an uncertain date, and in the Senate or in the House, we have nothing. The next request was for the Bothell Way multimodal project. And our priority for this was to retain the funding that we had received and to make sure the legislature knew that in future years we would need more support to get the project across the finish line. And it is good that we had that defensive posture because, as predicted, the budgets went after previously awarded funds. So in the House transportation budget, the $7 million that was awarded to the Bothell Way multimodal project, $5 million of the $7 million is pushed into a future biennium beyond 2031. Until 2031 is when the state is facing really serious budget challenges on the transportation side. And so rather than eliminating funding from projects, for a large number of projects, they just push the funding into the future. On the Senate side, they honored the funding that was previously awarded to the project. So $1 million has already been used. There's another $6 million that's available. That $6 million is allocated in this upcoming biennium, which is what we requested. However, the Senate was only able to do that based on the assumption of new revenue. The House assumed new revenue as well. They just also pushed projects into the future. So as you can tell, we like some things from the House and some things from the Senate. Now that all the budgets are released, each chamber will pass their version of each budget. And the legislators that are lead for each of the budget teams will meet with their counterparts in the opposite chamber and they will be working to reconcile the differences between the two proposals. So that's a quick run through of the Bothell priorities as it relates to budget items. One of the city's priorities is not budget related, it's policy related. So I want to provide a brief update on that. And that is the priority to remove barriers to housing construction. There are a handful of bills that we've been supporting that are continuing to advance through the process. I just want to flag 3 for you this evening. The first is House Bill 1403, and this bill updates the condominium construction statutes with the goal of increasing condominium construction. And this bill is in the Senate Rules Committee. The next is House Bill 1491, which promotes higher density development near light rail stations, as well as bus rapid transit stations. And it is scheduled for a public hearing in the Senate Ways and Means Committee on Friday. That is the committee where this bill has died the last 2 sessions. But I don't want to jinx it, but I say it's looking in a much healthier condition than it was in previous years. And then finally, Senate Bill 5184 limits the number of parking spots that cities and counties can impose on residential and commercial buildings. And that bill is in the House Rules Committee. So both the first bill, the condo bill, and the last one, the parking minimums, have already passed this upcoming cutoff and the next cutoff, which is next week. So they're both in strong places as we move forward. That is the update that I have for you, but I am happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Shelley. Council members, anybody have questions, comments? Councilmember Kurd.
Hey, thank you, Shelley, for the update. I provided testimony this morning to the House Budget Committee about, well, first thanking them for including our project in the budget, in their version of the budget, but also cautioning them about the elimination of the Public Works Assistance account. And I'm wondering if you could provide a little bit of an overview about why that's of concern to the city and what the status of that is in the Senate version.
Yes, thank you for that question. I should have included that in my update, so I appreciate you mentioning that. And I will say you did an excellent job testifying this morning, came through loud and clear, and it was the vice chair of the committee was shaking her head, making notes as you were speaking. So sometimes we wonder the value of testimony, but I think in this case, it was helpful. So to answer the question, both the House and Senate capital budgets propose sweeping funds from the Public Works Assistance account. The House does a certain amount, the Senate does a certain amount. The amount is somewhat irrelevant. Both sweep the funds. Both proposals backfill the account with state bonds. So instead of using the cash in the account, they're saying we'll issue bonds. You can use the cash from the bonds that we issue. So the reason that's concerning is because it structurally changes the way that the Public Works Assistance account has operated for the last 40 years. And sweeping the money from the account is what we saw during the recession. And it took a while for the account to become healthy again. What is most concerning about the proposal in the Senate is, in addition to sweeping the account and backfilling it with bonds, they have proposed to divert the revenues that are paid into the Public Works Assistance account. So there's 3 revenues, a real estate excise tax, a stormwater fee, and I am forgetting the third, but those are statutorily dedicated to payments into the account. And that's what makes the account stay liquid, basically. Gives them cash flow to be able to continue to issue loans. The Senate Bill 5804, which is being heard here momentarily in the Senate Ways and Means Committee, will divert those payments to the state general fund and will essentially, Public Works Assistance account will cease to have revenue stream outside of direct appropriation from the state if they choose to do that, and loan repayments. So anyone who has used that account for infrastructure projects or plans to use it for infrastructure projects is incredibly concerned with that proposal.
And maybe this is a question, thank you for the context, and maybe this is a question more for the exec team, but what sorts of projects are at risk that the city of Bothell is using or leveraging those funds for, not funds, but the grants, I guess, low interest loan?
Yeah, I'll defer to city staff on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Curd. And again, yes, very, very well done. We have a few that are already in place, incurring one that is a loan that's to do kind of what the intent of this is, a full fish passage, so to daylight fish-bearing streams. We've also been granted a $1.9 million loan for the 35th Avenue Northeast project that also includes a new fish passage, culvert, and stream restoration, as well as a couple others that are more in flight. So essentially, this ends up being a funding tool that we do use for the capital program, and we have, I think, 4 current projects that are we're currently utilizing for that. And one of the things we discussed last night was around how it's used, is that even though on things that we've been awarded, again, that's not money that we receive up front, it's money that we get reimbursed for as work is completed. So that, again, we'll keep our eye on this. We'll continue to testify and advocate down in Olympia, and then at some point too, we might be back in front of council doing some problem solving.
Thanks for the context.
Councilmember Aldrich.
And if I understand correctly, there's a member of staff that's testifying on that bill for us since we're gathered here.
Yeah, thank you. As Shelley noticed, she's clearly able to keep an eye on 2 monitors, so I appreciate that. But yeah, Senate Bill 5804 was scheduled for hearing tonight, and this is the second week in a row that we've had a testimony opportunity during council. So our Public Works Director, Aaron Lenhart, who's also the next presenter here, is currently waiting in queue. So we may have some schedule swapping for that as well. But yeah, we started off the day in the House and ending the day in the Senate.
Thank you for that update. And Shelley, thank you for coming with an update with us. It's really helpful that you're tracking our budget priorities and providing an update on each one. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Shelley. I'll maybe it's a question also for staff. I don't know. But what's the impact of lowering the allocations to the city from those budgets?
Everything that would affect the capital budget really ends up then just like in the project management triangle of that you can affect scope, schedule, or cost. And so we would most likely be looking at the primarily at the schedule of it would end up deferring work and stretching out the timelines so that we could then find either other ways of funding the projects or stretching the available capital dollars further.
Because the $5 million, it's a big number, right? And it's postponed indefinitely. That's not very precise, So it doesn't help with scheduling much.
No, so we would be looking again at then seeing what else is out there. Although many of the sources that we typically turn to for our capital programs do come from the federal government and the state government, and both of them have hazy futures right now, and so. We'd be looking there first, though, of what can we do with what we have, and then coming back with some alternate proposals.
All right.
In some ways, then, too, when we look at your capital facilities plan, there's the aspect of how much is available, and so then what projects, as you look at the list, what projects are going to move forward. And it's quite possible then some would move into a later biennium. So, yeah, it delays the things that we hope to accomplish for Bothell.
I will add that at this stage in the legislative process, there is a lot of uncertainty because we don't know what the legislature is going to choose to do. Hopefully by April 27th, we will have better understanding of what they have chosen. And I say hopefully just because there is a small chance that there is a special session and they don't reach decisions by that date. But I'm going to remain optimistic and say we're going to know by April 27th what they decide to do. And that will then give more certainty to the projects, the awards that the city has received so far.
Councilmember Dodd?
Thank you. With regard to the changes for the public works assistance loans, would any of the proposals right now put the funding we've already been promised in jeopardy, the reimbursement specifically?
That is a very good question. And I can say that the legislators that have put together these proposals do not intend to threaten any of the awards that have already gone out. However, we are hearing from the Public Works Board that because of cash flow challenges, that if there is not new revenue coming into the accounts, then there will be challenges with issuing reimbursements for awards that have already been announced. So I think the easiest way that I could answer your question is we don't know yet.
I appreciate the honesty, as much of a bummer as it may be. So thank you.
All right, City Manager.
Thank you, and thank you, Shelley, very much. The next time we'll see Shelley will either be for a session recap as everything wraps up, or for the dreaded special session that may or may not happen depending on the status of the budget. So we thank her for the update. And again, this is something that we've tried this year as new, of having her join us in the first week of every month during the session, and it's been helpful to hear some more frequent updates in addition to the weekly written updates that you receive. So we appreciate the partnership.
Very much appreciated indeed, Shelley. Thank you. Those documents you sent are amazing, so thank you. It's like reading a city agenda packet. All the details the juicy ones are in there, you know. This is just a little teaser.
That's right. It's everything that you signed up for. So as previewed in that last topic, we are going to do a switch and potential a defer. So we'll see about the status of Safe Streets, but we're going to turn to another safety project, and we'll come out of order. So it has been safety night for the topics. We had 2 remaining updates. What we'll hear from first then is we're joined by our Police Chief Ken Suberlick and Police Captain John Rogers, and they're going to be here to provide an update to Council of essentially the first year, a little plus, in review of the school zone camera update. So we have full data from 2024 at this point, and are pleased to be able to share with Council some of the trends that we've seen and what is coming in the time ahead. So as we pull up that PowerPoint presentation, I will also note, just for the public, that if you do go out to the police department's website or search on the city website, school zone cameras, you will find reports by quarter as well as this annual report. So information is up there for anybody who's looking to see the data trends themselves. With that, I'm going to turn things over to our Chief of Police, Ken Suberlick, to introduce the topic.
Well, thank you, City Manager Stannard. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and City Council members. Tonight, as stated, we're going to be doing our school zone ALPR camera enforcement update. With me tonight, I have Captain John Rogers. This is his first time presenting tonight, so I wanted to give him a little bio. So he'll start off with that and go right into the presentation. So with that, John.
All right, thank you, Chief. I've met most of you. Thank you for giving us the time. My name is Captain John Rogers. I've been with the Bothell Police since 2001. I've worked in several roles. I've been a police officer, traffic officer, collision investigator, detective, training sergeant, patrol sergeant, traffic sergeant, and now I serve as the police operations captain. So just a little background on the program. Our current school zone automated license plate reader enforcement system, or ALPR, consists of 11 cameras covering 5 school zones. Looking at this slide here, some of the key takeaways from this slide for me highlight the high traffic volumes that we are seeing in certain school zones, particularly where we see cut-through or transitory traffic from outside city limits. Many of these areas are being used as access points to get to 405, bypass routes, or to avoid other congested roadways in the city. This will further be illustrated in later slides where we analyze vehicle citations based on registered vehicle locations. Yeah, you can stay there. This slide shows issued infractions in 2024, and you can see it's broken down by school location. In comparing, we're looking at for the fourth quarter of 2023 versus the fourth quarter for 2024. In comparison, you can see we are seeing a reduction in citations issued. And when we look at volume by speed, this slide breaks down the number of vehicles speeding in various increments. While any speed over 20 miles per hour is concerning, the speeds where we see 21 plus over the posted limit are especially alarming when considering collision factors like stopping distances. For some of you, you probably heard me talk about it takes twice as long for a vehicle to stop at 30 as it does at 20. This is due to that increased distance covered at higher speeds, which significantly increase the required stopping distance and impacts overall safety. While registered owners represent locations across the United States, the vast majority of violations that we're noting are from neighboring jurisdictions. This data aligns with our observations of cut-through and transitory traffic in certain school zones. The bulk of the cities where violators are registered in descending order include Kirkland, Woodinville, Linwood, Everett, and the city of Kenmore. This information further supports the presence of transitory traffic using school zones as access points to major roadways. I'll hand it back over to Chief Sublick.
Thank you, John. So next steps, we're going to continue to review our 2025 data as the year progresses. We will continue to monitor trends in the effectiveness of the school zone ALPR program in slowing drivers and making our school zones safer. And lastly, we'll be coming back to you in June with a presentation on red light ALPRs and asking Council for policy direction and consideration. And with that, we're open to questions.
Okay, Councilmember Dodd.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. There is some disappointing data there, but it was nice to see that there's been kind of a year-over-year decrease in citations, which is great to see. I have a question. You mentioned red light ALPRs in June. Will you perhaps be hosting like information nights for the community as we lead up to that discussion to kind of, I think sometimes people have a misunderstanding of what the ALPRs are and aren't, and just kind of show them the success we've had in school zones to kind of set the stage for the broader community discussion around that?
The short answer is yes, there is going to be some community discussion. Once we receive some direction from council, if the council should decide to move forward with something like that, then it'll be more of a robust engagement process. But yes,
okay.
both ends.
Thinking ahead, we love a good community engagement strategy. So.
And I'll add a little context to it too, is because sometimes when council receives something for the first time, it's to consider of bringing it back in a couple of weeks. And that's not what this will be. This will be a first touch look of, again, getting the direction from council of talking about what we know so far, revisiting some of the safety information from the comprehensive plan and some of the data that we've collected so far, and then seeing is council comfortable with us moving forward with this. So it'll be kind of that first touch. And with that, we'll bring back some engagement information as well.
Understood. I'm getting a little ahead of it. Thank you.
It's good clarification. I think when people hear that in the community, they'll be wondering, does that mean it starts if it's coming in June, does that mean it starts in July? And
the cameras launched June 2nd.
No, that's right, exactly. And that's not the case.
I'm kidding.
And my apologies for not being clear. Thank you, City Manager Stannard. Yeah, this is first touch.
Councilmember Aldrich.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for this presentation. The slide where you showed the comparison from year to year meant that you were looking at Q4, and so we could expect in 2025 that you would also look at Q4 because you're trying to at least keep the variables down, right? So like it's the same season, same like school schedules kind of thing. And that having that comparison, right? 2 data points means we saw it go down, but did it go down, or will it go down more this year? Is really what I think we're all hoping to see. That map was impressive to see how many cars are coming through from all over. But it is hopeful that as people who are used to coming through our community, living here, coming from outside the community, that they're learning how to avoid the infraction. I would hope. Though some of these, especially North Shore, Woodmore, I think we hear from our community a lot about concerns around safety in that area. It's a big, wide road. People go quickly down it. And the numbers here, I think, reflect the lived experience of the people in our community who are rightfully concerned. I don't necessarily have any questions. I'm grateful for the clarification around the red light cameras. I guess my understanding is that we would be able to offer guidance in how to engage with the community and what questions we're interested in asking and learning about, so that you could be informed with that as you go out to the community. I'll just clarify that. Is that correct?
The city has an engagement plan that we would be following, yes, when we go out and reach out to the community.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for this update. I was looking forward to seeing it. I'm glad that you're here to do it. Thanks.
Oh, Councilmember
Zorns.
Sorry, I was thinking.
Hey, I can't even keep my kids straight, so no judgment from me. Quick question. I went through the slides earlier yesterday or today, and the data may have been there on the comparing the speeds that people were traveling through. And I was kind of hoping has anything been observable about the higher speeds decreasing more? I mean, are they kind of decreasing more across all speeding infractions, or are we noticing the higher speeds, proportionally fewer of them?
Yeah, I think overall we are seeing the decrease across the board.
Okay, but not one speeding bracket.
That's correct. In fact, we did a comparison and just breaking it down, the trend is we're actually getting the lower average speed, and it looks like across the board in all skill zones, which is headed in the right direction.
It is.
For slowing drivers down.
It is. Thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Wow, my brain is just, I need more. Councilmember Curd, man.
That's okay.
Rough night.
You're on the spot. Spotlight is on you. Well, it's not. It's on you. And thank you for being here, Captain Rogers. Really good to see you. I had a question for those in the community who are just tuning in now and learning about this process. 20,000 infractions a year seems like a lot of paperwork. Can you explain a little bit about how your processes have been able to be flexible, or rather inflexible, to this increased load of documentation?
Yes, thank you for the question. So currently we're absorbing it just with our current staffing. I would say at first it was a bit of a lift. We've managed that. We are typically reviewing about 100 violations per hour. And on average, we're seeing anywhere from 250 to 300 violations to review. That's a process, of course, because we're going in, we have to vet it, verify that it is a true violation, that the beacon's actually flashing, and it's within that school zone time. So it's not just a simple, quick click, but it does add time to, and additional hours for staffing.
And then there are court impacts as well to the number of violations that we have.
Yeah, so Councilmember, I can take that one. So working with the court administrator as we were heading into the budget, we did two things. One is that we took an early look based on the number of violations that were being processed in the court, and there we did add resource temporarily after the first period of time to to make sure that they were keeping up with it. And then what I had asked for is for them to continue documentation of how many hours and what the workload was. And so in the budget that you did adopt for 25-26, it did add a resource to that. I'll also note that as we go forward, this is something that it's been helpful to learn from this with these locations for school zones. And as we talk about red light cameras or any other expanded use of ALPRs for other purposes or even additional locations, we have a better sense now of like talking to our neighbors, but also from what we've experienced ourselves of what the workload impact might be for staff. And so that's something that I could say that you could expect as well as we talk about potential use of red light cameras. There may be some analysis around staffing and structure of how do we make sure to really help make sure that the work that's being done in the court is the right work. How do we make sure that the hours that we're putting in from the police department are spent in the right place, and see if there may be some alternatives of how we might want to structure the programs.
You answered the question before I asked it. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Mankey, I wrote it down so I won't forget.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the update tonight. I'm pleased to see the number of violations going down. Trending down, indicating that it's working. And to Councilmember Zorns' question about the average speed, I also noticed it seemed to be going down. I think during the study period, it was somewhere around 35 or maybe even north of 35, now down to 31 average speed. It's good sign. So I appreciate the updates. I appreciate keeping the community apprised of what we're seeing and those reports being posted on the website for anyone with questions. And I think the red light discussion will be an interesting one. Lots of mixed feelings around those cameras, but I think the right community engagement plan will come to the right decision in the end. So look forward to having that conversation and getting feedback from the community and hearing more from you all. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome, Captain Rogers, to your first Spotlight show. I really appreciate it. I wanted to ask a question about the magnitudes, larger numbers at the North Shore Woodmore area. Mm-hmm. Like, do you have any hypotheses or ideas why that is the numbers are disproportionately larger in that area?
Yeah, my assessment is that's a lot of cut-through traffic. So people from Kirkland, Woodinville, getting over to 405. And so that's what the traffic patterns would suggest without doing a deeper dive on, that information. But we get some very high volumes of traffic, especially through that school zone.
Yeah, so the 3/4 number that you 73% it was or something like this, 75. So around 3/4, is that mostly driven by 3/4 of out of city, like non-residents traffic that's coming from? Do you think that's mostly driven by that area, from that area itself? Is that where that 75% comes in, or what?
Yeah, I would definitely say because that's one of the biggest numbers that we have and representing registered owners outside the city limits, that would, basically support that data that we are seeing a lot of traffic coming down 160th and towards the freeway. And then same thing traveling back, going eastbound. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense. That's crazy. I mean, it will be interesting to see if it's the same people or the same cohorts of people, so you can have some privacy, so you won't look at actual. But it'll be interesting to see if the same people, they love just getting tickets, all the time. So we'll have to see how many of them are repeat offenders versus one-offs, in the future. Speaking of that, it'll be good also, I think, to have trend lines since we've run this program for a while now. It'll be good to see trend lines, overall trend lines, see how the infractions are decreasing if they are, and then similar to those questions that we heard earlier, is like how is the programs designed to reduce the amount of speeders? So how well is that going down? Is it going down too steeply? Is very almost flat? Just to have those to have an idea of how the program is operating, So, and pictures are usually easier to read than tables of data to compare, if that's something that can be done in the future.
We'll definitely keep that in mind as we update the website and put the data up there so it's easy to read.
Thank you.
You bet.
No more questions. Thank you. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and great questions there too. And I think there was Councilmember Aldrich had asked a question earlier, and Deputy Mayor kind of speaks to yours too. Is that with school calendars, comparing quarter to quarter becomes a little more difficult because the number of days that the school is in session. So that is where we are now hitting that sweet spot of we're going to start be able to look at year over year, but also then quarter compared to quarter. And I think that does help the storytelling of the data and seeing, are we increasing, decreasing, and by how much? We're now in that part of we made it through that first lap, and now we get to start seeing things. So it's definitely more to come, and we will continue. We'll plan on continuing providing annual updates, and certainly it can update council anytime you wish. With that, we are going to stay on the safety theme and some of the proactive things that we're doing. We're not just focused on the enforcement when there's a problem, but also looking at how do we build a system that will address safety. And so our very capable and busy Public Works Director, Erin Lenhart, has now completed, as we mentioned, her testimony virtually with the State Senate on Senate Bill 5804. Thank you, Erin, for doing that and covering that during the council meeting, and now transitions gracefully into a Safe Streets and Sidewalk annual accountability report for 2024 to talk a little bit about some of the things that were done last year. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to our director.
Thank you, City Manager, and good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. I hope that this truly will be as graceful as you say. I'm here this evening to present the annual Safe Streets and Sidewalks Accountability Report. Just a very brief conversation with you all. I know that you had the annual report in your packet, and there's also a multi-year accomplishments report in the packet as well as on the city website. So I will direct your attention there. So the council action this evening, we'd like to encourage both council and the community to visit our bothellwa.gov/safe streets website for annual reports and for that multi-year report, as well as other information about the levy program. And at council request, we've included a lot more pictures this year, so the report is much larger than it has been in the past. So just a brief overview, levy information, just taking us back to the original formation, program funding sources, key accomplishments, and then some 2025 highlights. So starting off with levy information, the cost per thousand of assessed valuation for this 9-year levy started at 50 cents in 2017. Right now, it's currently around 32 cents per thousand AV for our Bothell taxpayers. What this levy funds is operations. So it's the primary funding source for our entire street operations. So that includes daily operations like filling potholes and powering and maintaining our streetlights and traffic signals, that sort of thing, as well as some of our programs that we do operationally. So sidewalk repair and replacement, local road repair, right-of-way maintenance, and inclement weather response. We also fund pavement preservation, focus on improving major streets, grant matches, and then patching and sealing local streets. Also, finally, safe school walk routes. We do sidewalk and crosswalk improvements and construction, and these projects were prioritized by the task force in 2017, which suddenly feels like a long time ago. This graphic appears in all of our annual reports. It's a very busy graphic. I understand that. What we're trying to impart to you is that the levy is part of a complex puzzle when it comes to funding our transportation needs. Expenditures in pavement preservation and sidewalk and crosswalk program, for example, really fluctuates from year to year. For example, just in 2024, the city invested $9.7 million in pavement preservation. And over $7 million of that was grant funding, and about $2 million was in the form of the levy, and then we had some additional fees that rounded out the almost $10 million for that. Some of our key accomplishments last year, the street operations team replaced 140 school zone signs. And they also did some repair and replacement work near West Hill Elementary, Bothell High, Canyon Park Middle School, Maywood Elementary, and Inglemore High. The Safe School Walk Routes program focused on design of sidewalks near Wooden and Frank Love Elementary schools. We also constructed a new rectangular rapid flashing beacon, or RRFB, south of Canyon Park Middle School. On the pavement preservation front, I already mentioned the significant investment last year in these 4 major arterials. As Council knows, this is the last year of the existing Safe Streets and Sidewalks levy. So we, staff, are coming to you and having conversations about what happens after this year. Our next conversation related to that will be in June. So some of the things for 2025, operations side, we invested in some new equipment so that we can more wisely use our resources and contribute less waste to the environment as well. We also have a lot of safety improvements projects planned citywide. So these are more RRFBs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and other safety improvements. And then the pavement preservation program this year is focusing on local streets, so primarily in Norway Hill and portions of 27th Avenue Southeast. So again, please visit the city website for Safe Streets for the annual reports and more information. And if council has any questions, I am here with some of my team who can help me, and otherwise, I wish you a good evening.
Thank you, Director Lenhart. Anyone has questions? Councilmember Dodd.
Thank you for the presentation, and this is always true, but especially as you're doing 30,000 things tonight, thank you for everything you do for the city. With the RRFBs that are planned, what is the best way to get like a list of those? And I don't just mean like right here, but also is it on a website that a community member could find, that kind of?
That is an excellent question. So I will defer to either Steve Morikawa or Rod Tierke. Maybe? They're like,
I thought someone else would be the cause of the phone a friend, but I did it.
thank you.
Right now, we don't have like a map that's just focused on only RRFBs or safe crossings, but we do have like a design and construction CFP map that essentially shows the projects that are coming up. And in those projects, you can get a list that'll show you where those things are.
Okay. I'm thinking about it for us in the sense of we get emails sometimes about specific hotspots, and it's good to be able to go look at that. Not always the most straightforward read, perhaps, in the CFP. Is there any chance of getting a quick list without?
Yeah, it's a great suggestion. We'll see if we can work with our web and GIS team and see.
No insult meant to the CFP. It's just hefty.
Yeah, I think we might also include some other safety improvements or locations plan. We haven't met with all the neighborhoods yet. That's one of our things we want to do before we install certain types of safety devices. And so we don't want to promise what it's going to be before we've had that meeting, but we can tell you where we're going to address certain concerns.
Awesome. Thank you.
Councilmember Aldrichs.
Thank you for the presentation and for just pinch hitting with the legislature. I saw you walk in right on time. It was great. So one question that I have is kind of around the task force. One of the questions I get most often from members of the community is, when was the task force? Who was the task force? Does it still exist? Will it meet again? And I know the first two answers, but I wanted to ask, is there going to be any follow-up with the 2017 task force that helped like kind of set the goals? And if you do meet with them, is that helpful in developing like what your future plans for safety improvements are? And I definitely know that people are interested in being able to weigh in and make sure that like their concerns are heard, that there's a way for their concerns to be heard. So
Certainly.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, it's broken.
Try the other one.
Can you try another one?
Can we grab another one?
No, these aren't. Oh, they're off. These aren't flashing.
Blue ones.
Are out.
Oh, these are. Oh, okay.
Do you want to come sit up here?
Please.
We got one right here.
This
for
one, okay, I think it works now. Matt stood up and it fixed it. It's kind of like, just punching it. So the task force, appreciate you asking. So they gathered together in 2017, and we recruited from the local schools. So we started with the North Shore School District, and we also asked for involvement from local private schools. We had the list of folks who did participate is on the Safe Streets website. We have a separate page for the task force and all of their work. So it has the report that came out of there. It has all of the individual meetings that they had. It had the minutes from there and how they came to their conclusions. We have not gathered them together since they did that work. And the prioritization, council may remember last year, I think it was last year, during the, last year, the year before, during the comprehensive plan update and the transportation element update, you, I believe Rita Hu came to you and spoke to you about prioritization of city sidewalk segments. So that is how we're turning our attention going forward once we are able to construct the highest priority list that came from the task force in 2017. Recognizing that the prioritization process that the council has supported includes school zones and the other needs for sidewalks throughout the city. Were those all of the questions?
I have more.
Okay.
Based on your answers. I do wonder if the people who had contributed to that plan might benefit from an update. Just, like sort of we're wrapping up the work that you assigned, you helped outline for us, and here's what you contributed to, and here's the results and impacts. It might just be nice to kind of see that kind of follow up for the individuals who are involved. And then going forward, will there be so say we have a future, we're in the future now and we have a new levy, will there be a new task force, or are we going to continue with the city prioritization with council strategy? Would it just be a shift?
It depends on what council directs staff to do, ultimately. Depends on how you want to prioritize those types of projects moving forward with new funding. So I think that's up for conversation.
And we'll be coming back in the June timeframe to have that discussion of what comes next. And so that'd be a great thing to be thinking about of how would you want to see that handled. And we'll take input.
Right. Yeah.
Great.
I think one of the big things is if council would want to continue focusing on school zones for all of these programs, or look more broadly through the city. So yes, would ask, as the city manager mentioned, ask you all to be thinking about that.
That's a good preview for future months. Thank you.
You bet.
Councilmember Menke.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the update. Appreciate it. I love seeing all the RFBs all over town. They're very attention-getting, so it definitely improves safety. I'm curious about the pole wraps. Are those new in the last decade or so? And is there really good data that says that makes the crosswalks or the rectangular flashing beacons more visible?
It's an excellent question, and we unfortunately don't have any ops folks here, but if if say Riad knows anything about
I could not hear that. We have what?
if the pole wraps, if there's any data about the safety improve safety.
We can follow
Yeah,
up
we can
on that
follow
one.
up,
I think that would be a good
certainly.
to
Yeah.
follow up, and we'll mention it and see if we can update that on the website.
Sounds great.
Great. I've noticed those too around town, and it really does, again, let you know that there's something going on, the sign that you need to pay extra attention to, and appreciate seeing that. So thanks for coming back and updating the community on the extra dollars that they approved for safety spending. We appreciate it.
Certainly. Thank you, Councilman.
With that, thank you so much, Dr. Lenhart, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
everything you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Good night.
Anything else, City Manager?
No, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thanks for shuffling along with us. We really appreciate it. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. Now we turn to council committee reports, community reports, and conversations. Councilmember Zorns.
Oh, you are on top of your game now. All you need.
It was written down. I don't want to hear it afterwards either. So.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Just two updates that may be a little verbose. Apologizing now. One is a recap of NPRSA. Councilmember Dodd filled in for Councilmember Mankey, and please report on what I miss. Sarah Arndt is now the chair, and North Shore Senior Center has been working on clear messages and hearing from its membership. That was getting pretty bumpy there for a while. NPRSA had a joint meeting with the North Shore Senior Center board, and it was both a thoughtful and really illuminating conversation, I think, for both sides. Mostly focused in on maintenance obligations, both reactive and preventative. NPRSA wants to be meeting our levy obligations of a sound building, especially with the upcoming levy. The board's big focus, in addition to monitoring next steps on a regional youth center, are a new tenant agreement with the North Shore Senior Center and levy planning. And the North Shore, as a side note, North Shore Senior Center Board also sees a need for more of a connection between our two bodies of so that we can understand what's going on in our needs in our community. And then Thursday, I had a chance to attend a ribbon cutting of the Alexa Main Street building on 522 and 527. That building kind of went in with a lot of holding our breath because we had anticipated, I think I may be the only remaining council member who was part of that conversation. We had anticipated that there would be a gateway constructed, part of that lot and EF and G. And I had some great conversations with some investors who were there in the construction. And if you ever doubted that God sees everything, try building next to a bunch of seniors. I heard some pretty interesting stories about the seniors next door who were watching everything that was going on. We talked about why they didn't underpark and why and how they managed to optimize their parking. And I also thank them for not making our job harder by having parking for their residents, which means fewer emails to us. In addition to talking about how they built in community for their residents, we talked about the front-facing and corner treatment as the gateway. As a side note, the art that's on 522, was to address the garage that faced the street there, and it cost, I want to make you guys guess how much it cost, $1.5 million. And if you look at it closely, the words that are on there, if you start at the top left-hand corner and read it, there's a story. So I'm looking forward to a sunny day to sit down and read the story that they put there. And then the open public area, I think Councilmember Dodd has talked about having open public areas can be really welcomed. I was really struck on how it's going to look like a really good, effective gathering area as people are coming across from the park. And then they were very clear in the message, and I wanted to pass it on to you because just myself and Mayor Thompson were there. They wanted to thank the city, both the staff and council, for support as they were constructing, especially having access to lot E, F, and G to park. That was a big deal for their construction crew to be able to do that. So that's the sum total of my goings on.
I think the only thing I'll add for NPRSA, I did cover for Councilmember Mankey, and I prevented you from being named vice chair in absence. So it is still Councilmember Dembowski for now, but they are seeking maybe a new vice chair soon. But I felt you might want to be there to volunteer. And yeah, with NPRSA, I think the big thing is we're seeing a lot of really interested community members in making sure we maintain those buildings and we maintain records of maintaining those buildings. And I really want to commend our NPRSA staff, because I think it's been a lot of conversations. As you all, I'm sure, know, having read the tenant agreement, I'm sure, and memorized it, our lease, if we don't get maintenance records, our only recourse is to end the lease, which we're obviously not going to do to the senior center. Like, I can't imagine that world. So just looking at better ways to collaborate and have teamwork that isn't like, do it or we'll kick you out, because that's not really appropriate for the world we live in. So I think it's something for everybody to try and keep an eye on, and feel free to ask a committee member if you have questions. I'm volunteering the other two committee members, but I'm sure they're happy to talk.
I have an update from the NUSA Community Partner Meeting. I'm using this for proxy for the North King County Coalition on Homelessness, because I wasn't able to attend this month. But we get similar updates from, there's a lot of crossover between the two, and get similar updates. So I'm just going to share the community updates, although there were two fascinating presentations, one from a local community organization called Northwest Neighbors Network. They're providing a senior village to seniors in the area, and that means that people can sign up and volunteer and provide assistance to seniors who may be living by themselves or having difficulty accessing transportation. Really impressed to hear how they've grown, especially over the pandemic. And then I do want to share about the North Shore School District Lunch Debt Program. It was really interesting to hear that in the North Shore School District, there's over $150,000 of debt for unpaid school meals. And a donation program has started so that, concerned members of the community can donate to cover the cost of unpaid school meals to prevent, disruption in like graduation plans, especially as kids get closer to graduation from high school. I love the presentations, they're always great, but community updates are also really important. So Bothell Urban was there, and they mentioned that they are looking for community services who are hoping to find rental space in downtown Bothell so that they can rent out the downstairs offices. Lake City Partners announced that they have an opportunity to provide seasonal shelter in 2025 in a location near the day center in Lake City. This is for them is getting back to their roots, because back when I was first introduced to them, they were providing seasonal shelter. They did not have access to the enhanced shelter in Shoreline yet, and so it was just kind of rotating through church basements, and this would be kind of getting back to their roots in that regard. KCRHA did have severe weather shelters open near around this time. It was March 26th when we met, and there was some pretty wild weather predicted. And they learned from previous experiences that instead of waiting for the weather to get bad and open up, that they looked at the forecasts and we're like, we're going to open, just even if it's not as bad as we think it might be, just kind of preemptively. And I think people in the community, like throughout North King County, were relieved to see that we weren't trying to play catch up, that there's a little more proactive there. Shoreline was announced that they're accepting nominations for their Community Champions program. Bothell Community Kitchen announced that this would have just happened. So their last Sunday of the month, the entire community is invited to attend a community meal at Bothell United Methodist Church at 5 p.m. So that would be end of April, last Sunday. You are all invited. Center for Human Services is hosting a gala on March 31st at the Linwood Event Center, and they have been just a tremendous partner for us at the community, at the city here, providing mental health services and assistance to community members in need. May 31st. I meant May. We have time. The gala's May 31st. Thank you. And just this last week, Noosa and Lake Forest Park Rotary hosted a school district community forum with the Shoreline School District. And upcoming, the North Shore School District is hosting a family symposium. Families in the area specifically requested presentations and information on youth mental health. And so Noosa is working closely with them to provide some information to families so that they can address any concerns that might arise with young people and teenagers at an obviously difficult time of life in adolescence. So that is my update. I really love the opportunity I have to connect with our community partners and to hear the good work that they're doing in the community. It's often a very holistic experience to see all the different ways that people need help and then also show up for people in need. So I just think it's great for all of us to know that information. I'm happy to share it. Thank you.
I don't want to extend this time too much longer, and I don't have any official committee reports because there weren't any that I attended last week, but I do want to recognize that last week the city did experience a collision that took out some significant power infrastructure and caused power loss to some members of our community. And I wanted to thank the first responders from the city and from PSC for restoring services as quickly as possible. I think that the city's learning how to deal with their response and being timely. And so I have faith that the city will take lessons learned from that incident going forward. And I just hope everyone drives safely.
I will also add that there was another ribbon cutting just prior to this meeting. Side Hustle had their grand opening event with the chamber this afternoon about 5 o'clock, and the city manager and the economic development director or coordinator and I were able to attend and see. It's a cool place. So to have an establishment like that so near the park, it really, I think, features the developments, like the outside exterior kind of decorations that Councilmember Sorens was talking about. You can totally imagine events kind of spilling out into the kind of public space there. So yeah, it was. It's fun to be able to go to those events, but I could not make the election because I was celebrating a birthday for a teenager. It was great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. I just wanted to, looks like, close out this section by acknowledging that we do hear the public comments and we do read the letters and we have discussions with staff as appropriate. Just want to, I know we can't respond to public comment usually when they're being made or sometimes in the email. So, but just want to acknowledge that they are received and heard and read. And with that, we move on to the projected agenda discussion. Anybody have anything they would like to bring up? Councilmember Aldrich?
I believe this is where I mention the resolution that was requested of us from members of the LGBTQ. Are we doing that today or is that a different day?
Yeah, that has been scheduled to come forward next week so that the council can review the proposed resolution in the packet.
Great. That's going to be in the agenda packet next week.
Correct.
Cool.
Correct.
Just making
You
sure.
can give a preview though tonight if you'd like to, but I do want to make sure people.
Sure.
Know that, yeah.
Well, in honor of Trans Visibility Day of Visibility, which occurred yesterday, there are members of our community who are incredibly concerned about some of the political rhetoric being directed at marginalized groups. And that meant a community organization reached out to us and asked, how do we proactively affirm our values as a community to both protect the rights of members of our community and to live our values as a city. So that will be in your agenda packet for next week. Thank you very much.
I'll note just to put some context to the timing for next week is helpful. And thank you, Councilmember, for raising it in advance that Gabby Kuna, our diversity and equity and inclusion coordinator, is going to be meeting with some of our stakeholder groups in the community before having a draft for consideration. So we'll do that work and make sure that while it was requested by some, we want to make sure that we run it by some more community stakeholders.
Thank you for that context.
And with that, since nothing was pulled from the agenda, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda. Anybody? Please don't all do it at once.
So moved.
Second.
I have to write it down so I won't forget again. The motion to approve the consent agenda was made by Councilmember Zorns and seconded by Councilmember Menke. Anybody who wants to discuss? All right, everybody's so excited. And with that, City Clerk?
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Councilmember Zorns?
Yes.
Councilmember Alderks?
Yes.
Councilmember Kurd?
Yes.
Councilmember Menke?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Alcabra?
Yes.
Passes 6-0.
And we move on to the public hearing section. And City Manager?
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. And we do have one public hearing tonight, and this was discussed at your March 18th meeting where you had a staff report about the Commute trip reduction program. Tonight there is a required public hearing, and for that I'm going to turn things over to our transportation planner, Sherman Gong.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Good to see you guys again. Here tonight to follow up with our discussion about that CTR plan update and the briefing we had on March 18th. CTR plan is administered by Community Transit and requires an update to be approved by June this year. The draft CTR plan is in tonight's council packet and is essentially the same as the existing CTR plan, but with like about 4 significant revisions, which is also described in your agenda bill. In accordance with the Washington Administrative Code, the city is required to hold a public hearing to approve this plan, which is why we're doing this today. In addition, the SEPA checklist requirement for the plan has been approved. In response to council questions from the briefing, there have been no exemptions requested by Bothell CTR employers, according to our CTR plan administrator, Community Transit. And 2, there is no website to track the individual CTR employer progress. Although there is state CTR data that's available, but it's documented by census tracts, not individual employers. One can request individual employer data through a public records request, though, and it can be obtained, but no one has ever requested Bothell staff for any of that information. Our final step for the council consent will be for council consent on 3 CTR items on the 15th. That will be the ordinance to adopt the CTR plan, an ordinance related to the Bothell Municipal Code revisions that are related to the plan changes, and a resolution to approve an interlocal agreement with Community Transit to continue their administering of the CTR plan on behalf of the city. Thank you for your time, and we recommend the council open a public hearing tonight to meet that requirement.
Do we just open public hearing, or it's like we haven't done this like 50 times already? I hereby shall open the public hearing. I just want to say that. And City Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to speak?
We do not have anybody who signed up, and I'm not seeing anybody in either the in-person audience or the virtual audience, so we have nobody.
Thank you, City Clerk. And now I hereby shall close this public hearing and till future. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Would you guys like to take a break right now or for 15 minutes? Good. All right. We'll take a break for 15 minutes until 7:50. Oh, and then we have study sessions.
Recording in progress.
There it is, waiting for the on-air signal. I've also always wanted to say that. We are in study sessions right now, and I will send it over to City Manager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And this is our first of 2 study sessions this evening. And as you saw in your packet, it is a effort to update the sign code, which is, not to step on any, I already stole one line once, but it was last updated in the year 2000, which a few things have changed since then. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Christian Getz, who is our Deputy Director of Community Development, but joined by our lead presenter, Megan Rigney, who's our Planner in Community Development. With that, I'll turn it over to staff for presentation.
Thank you, City Manager. Deputy Mayor, Council, it's great to be here again tonight. Yes, Megan is going to go through a brief presentation on a legal update as part of this first step this year on the sign code. So really, really fun stuff. Hope it's clear, and definitely want to run through any questions that you have when we're all set. So Megan.
Hi. So I just have a brief presentation tonight about the first phase of the sign code update. Just a minute. Yeah. Okay. That's weird. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. But yes, there is no action requested tonight. It is only to discuss about the first phase of the sign code update. Okay. So first we'll go through the purpose, the scope of changes, and then we took this to Planning Commission and we'll briefly discuss their feedback, and then we'll finish with the next steps and discussion. Okay. So the sign code regulates the type, size, and placements of signs throughout the city of Bothell, like our lovely Welcome to Bothell for a Day or a Lifetime sign. It ensures safety, aesthetics, and compliance with federal law. And so the first phase is to update to comply with recent Supreme Court rulings. So just the removal of content-based distinctions. And then later this year in Q3 or Q4, we'll come back to modernize and improve and align with the 2024 comprehensive plan. So in the first phase, we just updated based on content. So we consolidated categories and made content neutral distinctions. For example, 12.22.060, we compressed to remove 12.22.065 to make it content neutral and to remove the distinctions between commercial and non-commercial. And you can refer to page 216 and 256 in the agenda for tonight to see the final draft of the code update as well as the final draft of the findings, conclusions, and recommendations. Okay. So like I mentioned, we took this to Planning Commission for 3 different study sessions. And on March 19th, they approved the final draft code along with the findings, conclusions, and recommendations. Our next steps are to have a public hearing on April 15th and then adopt an ordinance on May 6th. And then again, come back in Q3, Q4 with a broader code modernization and update.
So with that, I will open up to discussion and questions.
No questions for me. I just want to say thanks for tackling this beast. I know there's a lot of code in there, and I believe all of us had signs when we ran for office, and we all consulted the sign code, and it was challenging to figure out what was allowed, what wasn't allowed, and how to comply with the code. So thank you for doing this work, and we look forward to seeing the continued work.
This phase is pretty straightforward, but in quarter 3, quarter 4, there'll be a broader effort, and we're looking forward to that. It'll be fun.
I've got a couple of questions. One, thank you for the simplifying of signs, because it gets a little crazy during campaign season, so it'll be nice to have that clear cut. I have a couple of questions and don't need answers unless if you've got them. Are flags part of this? Maybe. Okay.
It's a great question. We can look into it, but there are exemptions for specific flags, the U.S. flag, state flag,
Right.
that may be flown at a building such as City Hall,
Right.
or throughout the city. But we can come back on that.
Yeah. Okay. And then
Councilmember Soins.
Yes.
Sorry, over here in front of you.
Oh, sorry. April Fools. I did it on myself.
The voice from above. I don't recall seeing anything in here about flags, but I do recall, it had a fun name, but I couldn't tell you what it was. The wavy sign, the wavy flag signs.
I saw.
Help me. The little guys that
inflatable
dance.
guys.
What are those called?
Yeah, I saw
I
them
think
in
the
there.
technical term is a wiggly jiggly guy.
Is that in the code, however?
There are specific
Yeah.
provisions that preclude those types of anything that moves or is meant to draw attention. That can be a
I saw
distraction.
something about that in here, which is as close to, an awnings or fabric, but if you're thinking fabric, that's as close as I saw.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Maybe it's when a flag functions as a banner and then you've got banner regulation. I have no idea. That's your problem to solve. And then another question, a couple
Animated sign, maybe that's it.
I think that.
A sign which contains wind operating moving parts. That's what it was.
Yeah. One is, I don't know, because I'm not the legal person, if a definition is when it has to be really fine-tuned versus it's subjective and it's, based on a staffer's judgment call, is on page 236. It talks about a maximum number of off-premises signs to be displayed simultaneously shall be 4. And my question was, what is simultaneously? Is it like within a number of feet? Is it, I don't know. That was just a question that I had.
I'd have to take a look at that here real quick.
Okay. It's just, Do you want to just noodle it? Okay. And then the other one is on page 253. All signs should present a neat and aligned appearance. That's point number 10. And my question is, I learned this from my mother. She had her definition of neat, and I had my definition of neat, and they weren't always the same. So how what are the requisites for something being a neat and aligned appearance?
And these are great for us to consider as we go into phase 2 and how we might modernize and clean up any codes that may be subjective that we could clarify. Or eliminate if there is confusion there.
True. I can just see someone who's very tied to their sign becoming, wanting to take to task what neat and aligned appearance is. And I think, that's my end of this section. So thank you.
Thank you, Kat. That's really helpful as we consider phase 2. Yeah.
One quick side comment, since we're on page 253, just below point 10.11, it says all signs should be constructed and installed using the services of a professional sign fabricator. I think with that language in there, that would prohibit technically a real estate agent from placing real estate signs up, like directional signs, things like that in a neighborhood, because they're not a professional sign fabricator. So I would recommend altering that a little bit. Maybe, I don't know how you do that. I'll leave it in your capable hands, but seems to indicate right now that you cannot install your own temporary sign, regardless of what type it is, whether it's large, small, on posts or not posts.
I think a lot of those items on page 250, whatever we were on, are they're under guidelines, so they're not even really enforceable anyway. And so when you're talking about modernizing our code, those are the types of things to eliminate, just reduce the amount of text that people have to wade through. One of the things that I was looking at more holistically, so this probably isn't for this conversation, but going forward, we mention impacts to pedestrians and automobile traffic, but really I think the most common impact is with bicyclists, because too frequently signage is just put in the gutter where we also push the bicyclists to. And so really being intentional about the language that we're using there will be really critical in setting precedent for the way that the city understands how people get around and it's yeah, I think including like the bicyclist mindset when looking at sign regulation is really important, because that's where a lot of impacts can be had. The other thing that I was thinking, also having hammered too many signs, oh my gosh, is utility protections. And so while these updated regulations do prevent signage from going in right of way where there is landscaping, when the most frequent utility that would be impacted there would be irrigation, there can be other utilities that are just 12 inches down. I don't know how many people are pounding signs 12 inches down, but that should be something that we think about when we recommend people have to hammer in a sign or insert into the ground manually, is thinking about utility conflicts there. The other thing that I was thinking about more holistically was enforcement of sign code too. And I don't know, like this is something to have longer and further discussions on later, but right now sign code enforcement is really dependent on like neighborhood complaint-based reporting. And I don't know if that's really sort of feasible at scale for community development to take on, or public works, or like what is the enforcement mechanism behind these rules, and how are they going to be like implemented and enforced? So that's something to kind of keep on top of mind.
One thing I would also just broaden out too for the council to consider is when it comes into complaint-based versus proactive enforcement, that's a council policy decision in terms of budget time, in terms of what are the resources that they would want to have. So if there are things that, and again, that there's a feeling of the city should be proactively out, again, it's a tough beast to take on, but it's doable. Then those are that'd be great feedback to be thinking about of then what do we need to do to resource up. I think with our current resourcing of a code enforcement officer, for example, realistically, we probably would never do anything much more than complaint-based, although I do know that there's examples of we are out in the community and there are other people, but that's also gets to the simplification point of we would then need the code to be so clear that we could deputize other employees to do it. So it's great to be thinking through that lens of what we want that to be. And again, if it's anything more than complaint-based, then we could think of strategies and resources to make that possible.
I know other communities have sort of find it, fix it apps for their public works department, and those also can loop in sign violations or problems with they're located in an area that's blocking vehicle traffic. That's not always something that the installer is understanding when they're looking at install. So those are the sorts of things that I was thinking about when looking through sign code. The very specific thing that I'm going to get down into is there's a mention in 22 or 1222.050, which is on page, it's up there. Almost there. Okay, prohibited signs, page 227. And item D, signs erected, maintained, or painted upon trees, rocks, or other natural features. Would that prohibit some of our current signage about the town gown loop, where there are plaques on rocks around between downtown and campus that we have implemented as a city? So those are the sorts of things that like might have unintended consequences if we were to start enforcing.
Thank you for looking into this, and I know there's phase 2, so maybe this will be a phase 2 type thing, which is, number one, I second the simplification. As I was going through it, I mean, it was like a 40, 50 page read through this thing, and it's like as complex as our zoning, you know? It's like next thing you know, you're gonna have setbacks and all that in there too, which related to that actually, was the comment that was mentioned by Councilmember Kurd, which is how would we help the installers know where the utilities are? If we wanna start putting something there, like as long as you don't go and bust a cable or, you know, God forbid, like take down the power for half the city, you know, for putting one sign in there. So I don't know how we will be able to do that, but something to think about, and maybe we can discuss at some point in the future. But simplification is the biggest thing, honestly, for something like signs. Seems to be too complex. I don't know, it's not our way beyond before our times, but maybe something phase 2 to figure out.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. This is great to kind of set us up for that work, to make sure it's clear to the average user, the installer, just the general community that's visiting or living here. Make sure they understand what can and can't happen, to reduce clutter and make sure it's people can get to where they need to be. So.
I saw something in here about line of sight. Let me see if I can find it. Page 244, item E. No sign shall be located within the sight distance triangle and line of sight. And there's going to be a picture that directs them to somebody. Can that link to it so that when somebody sees that, they get the interpretation easily accessible to them?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think somebody could look at that and be like, what does that mean? And where's that picture?
The short answer is it's a very complicated calculation based on speed limit. It's that triangle of sort of a do not block this area, but it depends on the roadway type, curbs, speed, all that fun stuff.
Sounds fun. Yay, math. The other question I have is around like sandwich boards and signs that are left out on sidewalks. A lot of time, like our sidewalks can get really busy with like, garbage bins and signs, and especially for people who may be in a wheelchair or have mobility challenges, it can be quite hard to navigate the sidewalks sometimes when it gets really busy. And so I'm just hoping that there's something in here about that so that, that people can navigate our sidewalks for their intended use. Cool. Thank you. But I appreciated the simplification. For however complicated it is still, it is less complicated than it was. And I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you both. Appreciate it. City Manager.
All right, we're rotating to a different topic coming from community development, and one that I know the council is quite interested in. We'll be joined this evening by Ray Sosa, Senior Long Range Planner from Community Development. I think Jacqueline Sampson is also here in support, as who's our long range planner. And we have an extra microphone. So when I get done, I'm going to bring you one. So it takes a village. We got this. That's right. That's right. And to walk the council through some of the things that are before you. And again, while we didn't do it for a sign code, although now like that I'm sensing a version 1.5 of the phases, but for this one, again, we have some council questions for consideration because this is an awfully big topic, but to really help you as you contemplate. So those will be up on the screen. And again, we don't need answers to each one, but those are there more to help inform some of the feedback that you might have. With that, I am going to turn things over to Christian. Are you kicking us off, or I'm going to go straight to Ray. Ray, thank you.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for being here tonight. Tonight I'll be speaking about our housing action plan. And so the purpose of the study session is to provide Council with an overview and status update of the housing action plan. Staff is seeking guidance and feedback from City Council on the housing action plan's draft, goals, and objective, as well as the plan's community engagement strategy. No action is required tonight. Just to give a little background of what the housing action plan is an update to the previous housing strategy plan from 2018 and a short-term deliverable of the 2024 comprehensive plan update. This plan will examine our existing housing policy and design new strategies and improvements to current efforts addressing the housing shortage citywide. And so we have some few questions here. I won't read through the whole text, but some questions I would love for Council to consider as we go through the presentation as well. As a little background of how we got here today. So, as mentioned, we adopted the previous comp plan in 2015. That comp plan set forward in motion the work to start the housing strategy plan, which was adopted 3 years later in 2018. All of this happened before COVID. As we know, the world back then was a lot different than where we live in today. And so following the housing shortage that ensured during the pandemic, Washington State Legislature passed a few bills. In 2021, HB 1220 passed, which allowed for step housing statewide, and then 2 years later followed by HB 1110, which allowed for middle housing everywhere as well. And so as a response to that, Council adopted Ordinance 2407 the same year to allow middle housing, to amend the comp plan from 2015 to allow middle housing in our city, followed a few months later by adopting 2014, which set regulations for middle housing. Later that year, we adopted the Imagine Bothell in December 2024. Earlier this year, we met with Planning Commission twice to present on the Housing Action Plan and get their feedback on our draft goals and objective and our communication scope, which I'll be talking about down the road in the presentation. And to just show what the middle housing change looked like. So in the first map to the left, these are all the residential areas that after passage of HB 1110 allow for 4 units for middle housing. The map to the right is after our comp plan adoption. The dark orange, it now allows for up to, more than 6 units in those residential areas. And here's some data we've pulled from EnerGov looking at all the housing units permitted since 2020. As we saw that we saw a downturn in 2020, then we saw an uptick in 2021 and 2022. As some of these new state legislative laws were passed, we saw a small decrease in 2023 and then an uptick again in 2024. And so housing units have been, there's been housing construction in the city, even with some of these laws being passed as well. And so transitioning to the Housing Action Plan itself, the Housing Action Plan looks at 6 overarching goals: to create more housing types, support transit-oriented development, foster affordable housing for all, and community voice in housing, and track those housing impacts as well. And more details on these goals can be seen in the packet as well. And so for our community engagement approach, we are primarily looking to maximize the community participation and actively engage all Bothell residents, including those from underrepresented groups, and make sure that we are accurately conveying the community input to some of these groups, decision makers, stakeholders, and internal partners and external agencies, just some of the few groups as well. And so as I mentioned earlier, we met with Planning Commission earlier this year twice to In early January, we presented on the general scope, the draft goals and objectives, and the budget timeline. And then a month later, we came back and presented a community engagement scope and approach. Planning Commission had a lot of great feedback, and we had a great discussion with them. And the overall theme being that Planning Commission supports and recommends moving forward with the Housing Action Plan work as we presented. In tandem with the Housing Action Plan work, we're also looking to understand our MFT ordinance. Background on that, we passed the City of Bothell adopted an MFT ordinance in 2021, and we're looking. And while developers have not taken advantage of it yet, we're going to look at how to make sure developers know about it and take advantage of it. And so, in partnership with Arch, the Arch consultant will examine Bothell's MFT code to make sure that we are advertising our MFT program, that our MFT program increases housing for low and moderate income households, promotes affordable housing, and encourages additional housing near transit, while also making sure that we accomplish the goals under the GMA. Also in tandem with the MFT study will be our middle housing code update. So we are promising that by June of this year, we will make sure we have our draft zoning code amendments, our timeline for council to consider minimum development densities, the mechanisms needed to produce a dedicated affordable housing, and identify any needed potential amendments to implement the update. And so next step, so as I mentioned, so we are right now in the phase 1 scoping. We are now transitioning to our phase 2, so our community engagement kickoff. That'll be going through this year, and then we'll hope to have a first preliminary draft either by the end of this year or by early next year, which that draft will be presenting to Planning Commission, to Council, and to our community participants and members as well. And we're hoping to have a final draft by mid-2026 of next year that we hopefully will adopt by the end of the year. I should note that while the phase 2 is community engagement, we're planning on doing community engagement through all phases of the Housing Action Plan. And so in conclusion, no action is required tonight. We're just seeking guidance and feedback from City Council on the Housing Action Plan's draft goals and objectives, as well as the plan's community engagement strategy. And so back to the question I presented earlier, these are just some starting questions for Council to consider, but we also welcome any other questions or comments or feedback. Thank you.
It's our turn. Thank you so much for being here and for moving this work forward. I appreciate that we're starting with questions. I feel like it's really great to focus, but it also sort of, and I mentioned this to the city manager, that kind of built into the questions is the problem statement of like what we're trying to solve for. And I thought number 2 in particular was very clear, like, yeah, we're trying to build opportunities for housing types that are under 80% of AMI. And I just appreciated that. On slide 8, can we go back to that? Thank you. I see affordable housing, so foster affordable housing and affordable housing for all. And I wonder if maybe we're using 2 different meanings of like the term and then the idea, which are different. And you encounter this a lot, I think. And I know that members of our community have said, well, when you say affordable housing, what do you mean? And we use like the term and the idea kind of interchangeably. There's affordable housing, which means it's subsidized housing, if I'm understanding my glossary terms correctly. And then there's affordable housing, which is housing that people can afford. Are they being used in 2 different ways here, just for my understanding?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And just, you know, I might know that because I've been in this world for a while and I understand and I can get the context even though they're just bullet points, but I know that members of our community won't be able to do that. And so I wonder, how do we, like, when you say foster affordable housing, that's the term, subsidized housing that, you know, housing that is subsidized. That is the term affordable housing. The one below, affordable housing for all, isn't the term affordable housing. It is housing that people can afford.
Market rate that's less than today.
And so how do we avoid using the idea interchangeably with the term? And that is a request that I would make. And so, you know, I'm saying people, like housing that people can afford is my way of defining it, but there may be other terms that you as the professionals use. I think as we are going through, like, especially the public engagement, it's going to be really important for us to keep those ideas separate from one another so that we don't continue having people talking past each other. There's a lot of frustration that comes in among members of the community when people don't know the context of, when you say that, what do you mean, kind of thing.
And just to add to
Yeah.
this, you are right, and that's maybe one thing that we can bring to the community. Here's what these things mean to us. What do they mean to you? Type thing. That way, and we have that definition early on, and then we can move forward from there. I think, from a community engagement standpoint, that would, if they help us define it, then we won't have that issue later on.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. That was just one thing that kind of popped out to me. And I appreciate you understanding and like seeing like how can we work with these ideas so that we can clearly communicate to our community. And then I thought like I was really excited to see the scope and what you had included in the packet. And there's two things that I'd sort of like to highlight. I feel like they were kind of maybe hinted at or buried, perhaps. I looked and maybe didn't see them, but then somebody said that they were in there, and I was really excited to be directed to it, so thank you. One is, I'm going back to a staff member who retired soon after I joined City Council, and he was very, very excited about including pre-approved plans for ADUs, making them really accessible to members of the community. So when people wanted to build additional housing units, that it was just clear for like the non-professional, right? Somebody who just wanted to do this in their property. And that staff member was Dave Boyd. And so I hope he's not watching because he's enjoying retirement, but I'm going to name drop him and hope that we have a vision of that goal moving forward. And I say that as a homeowner who would very much like to build an ADU and not have to get a degree in construction management to do it. So that I know is in there. I'm glad it's in there. And the other one that we've talked a lot about, especially around the middle housing discussions, is guidance for homeowners who want to either split their lots and or convert their homes to multiplexes. What kind of guidance support, educational materials can we provide so that we're streamlining that process? And, because we often hear the stories of people who got frustrated, who like tried to figure it out and got stuck. And they're like, this is hard. And now I'm going to complain to you about it. And I'm sure you get those calls too, but when they come to us, it's usually in that form. And we very much want to reduce the barriers to allowing people to optimize their property in a way that best serves, their family, their finances. Because often we know that when people are making these conversions or adding ADUs, it's so that they can provide a home to family, like either younger or older. And so I just want to make it accessible. And so that is, I know it's built in here, I know it's mentioned, but I want to just highlight that as a priority, because I know that many homeowners, it's not just me, there are others in the community who are looking for that guidance as well. Thanks.
I have a comment. Well, one, could we put the questions back up there? Thank you. I'm fine. I think that you've touched on all those points on the questions that you have up there. I do have a concern, and I know that this is just the beginning, and nothing has been spelled out. By the way, rabbit trail, perfect. The picture is perfect for me. I love the rate at which you talk. It's better than a cup of coffee. I was just like fully engaged. It was great. Don't ever change that, please. It reminded me of putting like YouTube on 1.5 speed. 2 times. It was perfect. Anybody who knows,
Especially city council meetings.
anybody who knows Ryan McIrvin talks with that speed. I love it because it just sucks my brain in. You have my undivided attention. You do great. My concerns are that this is very aspirational, and if we're not very guarded in how we direct this, we're going to end up with no trees. All our soil's going to be covered, and the rain will not have a chance to be cooled and filtered and replenish our groundwater and our streams. And people are going to end up with someone sitting right on their property line if we're not careful. But I really would encourage, this is not on you, but as a city as a whole, I think we need to put into, if I could make, a little edict here with our state lobbyists and our federal lobbyists, that a lot of what we're trying to do, the gains that we would make in this, just get defeated by other factors that are beyond our control, like people who are doing speculative investment. I mean, I can tell you there's a couple properties on my hill empty because somebody bought it for speculation and it's sitting there empty. So I think if we could get lobbyists who could, on the state and federal end, give us some legislation that makes this be effective, and we don't end up just spinning our wheels with, we're doing all of this so that we can have affordable housing. But if we do all this and we lose what Bothell is presently, and housing is not affordable, we've lost. So I would really encourage us to get lobbyists to move on a state and federal level so that this work is productive. That's my only 2 bits.
Interesting concept. I think, I think if we could lobby for land value taxes, that would be really cool. But I think we're really constrained in the state about there's a recognition of private property above all else, and so that's sort of one of the things that we're working with. In terms of the Housing Action Plan goals and objectives, I think that it meets a lot of the key things that we've been talking about for the past 6 to 8 years. So thanks for taking notes all those ways and then making their way along to you. I think one of the things that I've been thinking of more and more frequently, and this has been highlighted especially in some of the affordable housing discussions on the east side and in Bellevue, is the recognition that land here is so expensive. And it just underpins a lot of the balance of whether something can pencil out or not for affordable housing. And so one of the things that Bellevue has been leading on in conjunction with Imagine Housing is commissioned studies with a number of different economists and land developers and affordable housing providers, is studies of partnering with faith communities to better utilize the land that they have, if that's something that they're interested in doing. That can unlock a whole lot of land that is already developed, but isn't developed to its capacity or holding capacity of people. And so that's something that I think we kind of gloss over in our goals and objectives, but regionally we've been hearing that that's kind of a key missing piece to the puzzle without compromising on plowing out greenfield development. We want our forests still, we want our open spaces, but if there's already land that's been, it's being held and it's not being developed, what are the kind of the factors that could help those faith communities better utilize the land if that's a value that they have? So that's something that I'd like to see incorporated, even if it's sort of just lip service, to just understand that that's some of the context that we're seeing regionally on the east side. And we recognize that land is expensive here too, and that's one of the key things that we can't set a whole lot of policy about lowering the cost of land. So that's one of the things that I think I'd like to see and was missing in my read through of the goals and objectives. I think one of the other things that I would just encourage you to think about, and I know Mayor Thompson isn't here right now, but he would be harping on this if he was, is pretextual planning. And so we set up all these restrictions and we build up our planning towers on parking minimums, and we institute all these things that we like objectively hate, parking minimums, FAR, and modulation, all these like architectural things, and then we say we'll kind of cut back some of our requirements if you provide affordable housing. And when we neglect to see some of the external responses of all these other things that we've been like putting up and barriers that we've been putting into housing, is it really a trade-off to say we'll give you the little bit of extra bonus density for the affordable housing if the density itself is going to be affordable in 2 decades? Like, there's just sort of like a I just encourage you to read about pretextual planning and understand our housing action plan in the context of what regulations are we setting, and are they actually beneficial to, in the policy discussions that we have on council, are they beneficial, or are they actually setting more barriers down the road for affordable housing and housing for all? So that's something that I would just want to throw it out there as long as we're having a study session on it. And I'd like to keep that as a thread going forward to see that the policies and things that we're looking to implement are working in our favor and they're consistent with these goals and objectives, even if it's outside the realm of like, what are we doing for affordable housing? It's a bigger story too. Thanks.
This is a tough problem. It's a really tough problem. It's probably one of the toughest problems our society has to face nationally right now, if we're being honest about it. So bravo for working on this. I think we all wish we can go back in time and try to prevent the mortgage crisis, which kind of precipitated all of this. And then if we knew about low interest rates and we knew about the demand that it would be for housing, it would be a lot easier to tackle problems like this. And also nationally even, this is a supply and demand problem. Supply and demand is pretty simple economics. You need more housing than there is demand in order to stabilize or even lower prices. And we're at a place where it's pretty hard to do that. So I think we can make progress on it. I don't think as a city, we can have well-intentioned plans, but it's a little bit like taking a cigarette lighter and trying to light like a 1,000-gallon tub to try to fix the problem. I think we really need to focus regionally. We can have plans, we can have policy, we can update our plans, but we need to continue working as a region and as a state to tackle this. So I would like to see, that written in. I know Councilmember Zorns mentioned public policy. I think there's a lot of things in public policy that could be helpful. If the state or federal government could help spur housing production. I think the last time we saw something like this was when our soldiers came home from World War II and started forming families, and they managed somehow to produce homes back then. There was more land and there were other factors, but maybe we could pull something from history that could be helpful in our planning, our strategy. So maybe that's one thing to think about.
Minus the laws that were passed back then also.
Minus the laws that were passed. But just there was a great production of housing back then, so to speak, and people were able to, for the most part, be able to purchase a home. There was a lot of, I think, government incentive, government backstopping things to create it and for lending. I think something else to keep in mind is to make sure that we're not setting policy or strategies that inadvertently push people out of their homes. As things continue to get more expensive, it is more expensive to maintain and stay in your home. And it's April 1st, property tax season is here. So I paid my property taxes last night and noticed that they'd gone up 50% in the last 5 years, which is, for me, a working adult who supports a family of 5, that's not easy. But if you're a retired fixed income resident in the city and you're trying to maintain in your home or your condo or whatever it may be, you're facing the same problems, but you don't have the luck of growth of income over time that somebody else who's working faces. So I want to make sure we're not inadvertently pushing people out. So if we can have a strategy for that as well. And we need to be mindful about other policies that appear to be revenue generating, but are counter to affordable housing. I know that the state's working on tenant protection policies, and we've talked about that as well. They've been done in many places, and they've raised the cost of living in those places, and I think we need to be really careful with those things as well. So in addition to saying we're going to do these things, I think we need to look at like what we're not going to do, things to be careful of, and make sure we're not saying we're going to do these great things, but we're also like making it harder on this other side by looking for additional revenue, or ways to eliminate on one side, and it's really hurting the other side as well. So I'm okay with increasing ADU development. I love the menu of units that are pre-approved. I think it was Seattle that did that. For those who are not into becoming a building expert, if you can select from a book and be like, this is the style that I like and it fits my property, and it, you have a good way in and a shorter period for development, it's going to be really helpful. I'm into like not requiring single property owners to do frontage improvements and underground wires, and like for development, yeah, it makes sense. But for individuals, I'm not into that at all. I think it's hard when you require an affordable unit for a property of a certain size, because if you say 10 units and you need to have one affordable, they're going to build 9 to avoid that. And you go down to 9, then they'll build 8. Or, it has to make sense. It has to pencil. To Councilmember Curd's point, property is expensive, land value is expensive, developing is expensive. It's risky. There's a lot that goes into it, and they're only going to build what they think they can sell and what they can sell for a price that will allow them to continue in business. So it's a lot. That's probably not helpful at all, but I just want to make sure we're thinking holistically about how we're tackling it, and we are thinking regionally, and we're working with state and federal government as well to do what they can do to help us here in the city to produce more houses, and we're doing it in a regional way where it's not one city taking on all the housing or changing drastically, while maybe a neighbor's like, well, they're doing enough, we don't need to do that, or we're going to maintain whatever we want and only do the bare minimum. And that makes it really difficult, I think, for certain cities that are doing the work, that are thinking about it, to take action. And it makes residents in those cities apprehensive and wondering why their city's taking action when a neighboring city is not. So I think that's all I have to say. Those are my random thoughts, and thanks for taking that into account.
I like that. Actually, that's a very good point. I think we're at a point where we can ask those questions, right? Like talk about these things, like the high level, and then go down, as we're learning, as we're developing things. Because we're doing things like we're 10 years, everything's been 10, 15 years since it was last looked at. So it's good to ask those questions, because we are today we're way different, as you said, than we were 10 years ago. Actually, we say BC, before COVID, this is what 5 years ago, the world was a lot different than it is today. So I very much appreciate that. We do need to look at, when we make decisions today, what's the consequences in 10, 20 years? Hard to predict, but just to have those questions intentionally, explicitly written down, perhaps that will help future generations when they look at this, like, oh, they did think about this. They just couldn't do anything about it at that time, So that will be a good thing. The only thing I wanted to add to everything that was said here is that my biggest thing is just lesson learned from the past 4 years, as we were doing big things that impact a lot of people in our city, is just to have early, frequent, lots of communication with the community members. I know we've tried to do things here and there, way more than we have before, this council was here and the previous council, but I just want to, so the more frequently we talk to people early on, just like the question of affordable. What's the definition of affordable in two different contexts? So and that's one aspect, but in general, when we talk about the other things, middle housing or it's late, I don't remember the other things right now, but those things, those questions. So just having the conversation, getting that feedback, and maybe intentionally incorporating some of that language used by community members in the plans that we develop, if that makes sense, just so that people feel like we're actually, when they say something, we're actually listening,
Yeah, if I may, so we have put out an RFP for an engagement specialist to assist with the housing action plan as well as the downtown plan. So we want to make sure we're right-sizing the engagement here. We also recognize that we have multiple plans going on at the same time. The staff working on those sit next to each other, they communicate with each other, and so the overlap within the climate action plan, within downtown, and within the housing action plan and urban forestry management plan, there's a lot for that cross-pollination and discussion, as well as opportunities. If there's an event for downtown, we still have the opportunity to speak with those folks about housing, and so we're going to look for the best way to connect and then make sure that we do maintain that feedback loop throughout the development of the plan and the process here.
And I realize we can't please everybody. I get it. It's just, let's at least try, It's just based on the lessons learned from the past 4 years, at least, from what we've done. That's it. So just for us to feel so that the future planners and council members, when they look back, it's like, oh, what are these guys thinking, or, oh, yeah, they thought about these things, type thing. Again, to my original point. That's it.
I realize that everybody would probably like to go, but as usual, you all have great ideas and say things that make me think of other things. And so around the speculation and vacant properties, I would love to just point everybody to British Columbia's speculation and vacancy tax. They actually have a policy in place in British Columbia. They are a province, so that would be more state level. But that is something that it basically, if I understand it correctly, if a unit stays vacant for, I don't know if it's 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, but if it stays vacant long enough, there's an additional tax that then usually the corporation has to pay, which either incentivizes them to rent it out to a tenant or to sell, so that it can go back into the housing supply. So I would put that out there. And then the other thing that came up, it was sort of obliquely mentioned under the Affordable Housing for All section in the packet, that permanent supportive housing is something that is required under the income bands. I would love to see all of the income bands laid out in here, and I think it's going to be really important for us to educate the community about what housing for each of those types looks like, who's served, to humanize the people, especially around permanent supportive housing, to humanize the people who are eligible and deserving of that type of home. We hear a lot of just kind of fear-mongering scare tactics of those people, living in our community, and it hurts my heart because I look at the people who need those, and they are usually survivors of really awful circumstances in their lives. And the fact that they are still alive is the win, and we're trying to provide humane, compassionate community for everybody who is still with us. And so I very much dislike some of the negativity I hear directed at people who are in need of permanent supportive housing, whether it's through disability, through some kind of infirmity, whatever it was that happened in their life that means that they don't have people that they can fall back on. I want to educate our community to be welcoming and accepting of each of the type of people who would live in each type of housing. And so that can be through pictures. That could be even through, I'm familiar with some like persona work, where you kind of have a case study where you're describing a person that may be an amalgam of many people. But those ideas and concepts can humanize our future community members and currently our community members who are either excluded or rejected or underserved. So I wanted to bring that up. And then last thing is under the outreach, I don't think I've ever seen, I've seen some really fantastic outreach from our community development department. I want to say that. But to the deputy mayor's point, we could do more. And so I don't think I've ever seen tabling at like the pop-up markets or like the making local markets. Definitely seen them at like the summer nights events and the parks events and, but there are, and like the library, even with like Civic Saturday, I've seen some really great opportunities that community development staff has found to partner. I wonder if it would also be possible, especially since it's City Hall property, to have a table out like on the green out here so that people could stop by during a Making Local market and learn more about community development. That you guys could set one up on the corner of Main and 527 during a pop-up market. Would love to see you reach more people, and I think that might be a way to do it. Cool, thank you.
I'll piggyback off of what Councilmember Aldrich said about persona. One of the things that you said earlier was that people don't know what affordability means because we use it in so many contexts. I think we can safely assume that we can say to a family of 4 earning this much money, like those are the sort of like, we know what the average, we have surveyed it, we have data on the average household size in Bothell. We can say, we can use an average, we can set up an average idea or an average family and just go with that in some of the conversations that we have, just to give people an idea. It might not be their context and their immediate scenario, but it can help provide some needed relevance to what does affordable mean. So it's okay to use an average, I think. The other thing was about vacancy tax and communities who have effectively pursued investigations on vacancy. It is necessary to have a rental registry beforehand, which is a pretty huge economic undertaking. And so that's a conversation that I'd like to have as part of the discussion about policy related to our renter protections and renter conversations and landlord conversations too. Is that data is really hard to come by on a cityscape, and we can, if that's a policy that we want to undertake, we can resource community development to undertake it, but we would need more information to have those conversations. So just as some perspective, if you're hearing interest from council on whether a vacancy issue is or is not present in the city, definitely rental registry would be helpful context too.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point of where that's probably not necessarily a subset of the affordable housing or the housing action plan. It would be its own initiative, and it does tie into current work, but it would be something we'd need to scope separately. I think it's a good point of the complexities that are out there in terms of regulating it and the legal parameters.
Last call. All right, we're adjourned.